Imagine this. You're about to board your flight to Europe and you pull out your iPhone to check the weather app one last time. Every day of your vacation is forecast to be under an extreme heat warning. Maybe you're planning a trip and you want to avoid this situation. Or maybe you're already in the middle of your trip, already in Europe, wondering how you're going to survive. Either way, I've got you covered. Hi, I'm Angela, and 7 years ago, I moved from the US to Europe. Ever since, I've been traveling all across the continent and writing about it on my blog, Notes from Europe. If this is your first time joining me, be sure to subscribe for more weekly Europe travel videos just like this. I have lived through so many European heat waves at this point, with little to no air conditioning, and I can tell you that it will absolutely impact your vacation, but it doesn't have to ruin it. In this video, I'm going to show you how to prepare your trip, especially if it's happening in the summer months of June, July, or August, how to adapt to extreme heat if you're already here, and how to stay comfortable, safe, and still enjoy Europe. So I lived in Germany for about 5 or 6 years before I finally caved in and bought an air conditioning unit. For the longest time, I thought that I was living like the locals. So culturally, a lot of Germans just don't have air conditioning. There's this system of like opening your doors and windows in the evening and then shutting them during the day when it's really, really hot. But I can tell you that in the middle of an intense heat wave, that method just doesn't work. It is incredibly, incredibly hot. It's very difficult to sleep when the temperature is so high. It's not uncommon to wake up entirely exhausted because, again, it's impossible to get any sleep. And as terrible as that sounds for 24 or 48 hours, the reality is that heat waves can last up to, gosh, I feel like this latest one was literally 10 days to 2 weeks, if I'm being honest. And so that feeling, that exhaustion, that just tired fatigue that you always have because of such intense heat, it's just building on itself more and more day after day after day. Now, eventually I did buy an air conditioner. I kind of realized that there was no prize for unnecessary discomfort. And despite some of the stuff that you might read online, it's incredibly easy to just buy a small air conditioning unit here in Europe. So I made it happen. But that entire experience kind of taught me that sometimes extreme weather does require us to change our habits. All right, part one is for people who are planning their trips. Now, maybe you're going to be traveling in the summer. It can't be avoided, but you want to be ready in case extreme heat does coincide with your travel days. Listen, if you're already in Europe during an extreme heat wave, then feel free to just skip ahead to section 2. All right, the first thing that you need to do if you are planning a summer trip to Europe and you want to be prepared for a heat wave is you need to research the weather at your destination. The unfortunate reality is that heat waves can happen anywhere between May and September. Now, of course, they are most common during the high summer months of July and August. But having said that, it's the end of June right now, and we just wrapped up an intense 10-day heat wave. So really, they can kind of strike any time during that period. Personally, I think it's really important that you truly research the weather, type in your destination and the month that you'll be traveling, see what the average temperatures are, maybe even check how common it is for a heat wave to hit during the months that you're going to be traveling. What I would be careful of is accepting advice from social media. I see a ton of people on Instagram telling people to travel to places like Sevilla, Spain in August or July when it is routinely like 95 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit there. So do your own research, don't rely on anybody else, and see if you would be comfortable with the heat range, including the upper heat range of the destination during the dates that you're planning to travel there. Now, I did an entire video on how to properly choose your destination if you're planning a trip to Europe. I will put a link to that video right here so that you can give that one a watch. Like I talk about there, some destinations are magical in autumn, but hell in summer. So you really do need to do a seasonal specific search of the weather. Next, you need to confirm that your accommodations do have air conditioning. Unfortunately, it's not like traveling through North America. You really do need to confirm that your accommodations, whether they be short-term rentals or hotels, that they do in fact have air conditioning. But it does go beyond just your accommodations. If you have any special dinners planned, you'll probably want to check and make sure that the restaurant also has air conditioning. And if there's anywhere that you plan to spend multiple hours indoors, so whether this is a theater or a museum, I would just make sure that they have some sort of air conditioning or cooling system. If you're planning a trip during the summer months, another thing that you should do is book your experiences earlier in the day. Now, heat wave or not, this is just a good idea for summer travel because you will be outside in the early morning before temperatures get really, really intense. You'll really beat the afternoon heat. And finally, make sure that you have good travel insurance. Heat waves are just another reason that I recommend travel insurance because you never know what could happen. Now, weather itself is not going to be covered, but medical issues or covered disruptions will be. Travel insurance is most important for those who count themselves in the demographics that tend to be the most vulnerable to heat waves. So this includes older adults, children, pregnant women, and those with medical conditions. All right, if you are already in Europe and a heat wave is threatening to derail your vacation, this part's for you. Now, the first thing that you need to do is actually take this extreme heat seriously. Think of it this way. We respect hurricanes or blizzards. If a hurricane came through, we would absolutely consider adjusting our expectations for our beach vacation. And it's the same thing if a blizzard absolutely ruined our ski trip. Heat deserves that same respect. But because it doesn't manifest itself in the same way as other forms of extreme heat, we often feel like it's something that we just have to push through or endure. That's not really the case. Of course, your comfort matters, and I've got some tips here for how we can try to salvage your comfort, but your safety matters too. Extreme heat is incredibly dangerous for older people, pregnant women, children, and those with medical conditions, even undiagnosed medical conditions. So it's important to take this seriously. Next, you want to fix your accommodations. If you are staying at a hotel that does not have AC, maybe you risked it, you thought it wouldn't be so hot, I think you need to push back against a front desk that simply tells you, sorry, we don't have AC. The reality is, the hotel front desk should have some sort of emergency equipment for you to try and cool down your room. You can ask the hotel for portable AC units or fans to at least circulate the air in your room, any sort of temporary solution. Keep in mind, you're probably not the first person who's had this issue. On this, I would push back firmly but kindly. Next, you're gonna need to reevaluate and potentially rebuild your itinerary. Keep in mind that during heat waves, the morning hours are still rather intensely hot. But if you want to preserve some of your outdoor activities, things like walking tours or excursions, see if you can move those to the early morning hours. In periods of extreme heat, you may even encounter tour companies that are going out on extremely early excursions in order to not lose business due to the extreme heat. The best thing to do is to get in touch with your operator and see how they're working around the extreme weather. You also need to give yourself permission to not do the outdoor sightseeing. This could be a little bit disappointing, but consider replacing events like visiting the Colosseum or visiting the Eiffel Tower, other outdoor sightseeing activities with things that are indoors in an air-conditioned setting. So this could be going to a museum, taking in a performance, visiting a spa, or prioritizing some sort of indoor attraction. Keep in mind, your vacation isn't ruined. It's just evolving to accommodate the extreme weather. This next one is going to seem incredibly obvious, but you need to start hydrating. I know that it can be hard to hydrate and drink a lot of water when you're traveling, but during periods of extreme heat, you really need to be conscious about your water intake so that you don't get dizzy, you don't faint. So make that a priority. Really prioritize hydration. Next, you want to consider whether the wardrobe that you packed is going to be good enough to get you through the next few days with extreme heat. Now, I have an entire video on what to pack for summer in Europe, and the big message of that video is linen and cotton are your best friends. but I know that a lot of us from North America will try to pack a few of the things that we become comfortable with. I don't know, things like heavy denim or thicker materials, because to us in air-conditioned North America, those are also summer pieces of clothing. If you have a suitcase full of that type of clothing, I would say go out and buy a few pieces of linen and cotton, something that's going to be breathable so that you can be a little more comfortable for the next few days. And hey, shopping in the air conditioning, it's not a bad backup plan. And finally, learn from the locals how they deal with extreme heat. I know that it can be really easy to feel like your vacation has been totally disrupted by a heat wave and it's just not even comfortable anymore. Your clothes are sticking to you every minute of every day. It's difficult to sleep, you're chugging water and you're still thirsty. Look, I get it. It's really a disappointment to have this happen. But one thing that you can do to kind of expand the horizon of your trip is to calm down, slow down, and just observe how the locals in your destination are themselves dealing with the extreme heat. Now, I don't know where you're traveling to, but I would assume that you would see things like locals lounging under shady trees in the park, maybe reading a book, enjoying a little picnic. You'd probably see large congregations of people near any form of water, whether this is a river or a fountain or even a lake somewhere. Ask your hotel for recommendations like this. What is it that the locals do to cool off when the weather gets this extreme? This is the best way to turn unexpected weather into an unexpected vacation experience. I'm curious, have you ever had a vacation interrupted by some form of extreme weather? Maybe it was a heat wave, but maybe it was a hurricane or a blizzard or a volcano eruption. In solidarity with our viewers who might be suffering through a heat wave right now, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. I hope that this video was helpful, whether or not you are a trip planner who is hoping to avoid a heat wave or a traveler who is currently dealing with the temperatures. Now, at the end of all my videos, I love to leave the viewers with some sort of free resource that they can use to help them navigate the next step of their journey. I don't really know what the next step of the journey is for you, so I will mention a resource for each of the different groups that might be watching this video. If you're planning a trip to Europe, then I would recommend my free email course, How to Plan a Trip to Europe. Over 8 emails, I will guide you step by step through the process of planning an unforgettable trip to Europe. And if you are already in Europe and you're daunted by the prospect of having to reformulate an itinerary that you possibly built months ago, then I would suggest that you download my Europe Experience Planner. This resource is full of the best types of experiences that you can do while you're in Europe. And it also helps you to think through when in your trip would be the best time to do those experiences based on your energy levels and your interests. If you found this helpful, I hope you'll like and subscribe for more Europe travel tips every week. And if you want to hang out a little bit longer, then I would recommend watching these videos next.